Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, hello. We are at the bewitching hour. It's actually 1 minute after that, 4:01. Wanted to thank everybody for joining us. This is a meeting that I wanted to have with Commissioner Book. The mayor has joined us today, and we're grateful that he is here. But Commissioner Book, you and I had never had the opportunity, unlike the mayor and I and a couple of the other commissioners, to really sit down and just talk about what some of the important parts of this job and our work are. I do know that we have several points of intersectionality.
We do.
We have several points. We talked a little bit just a few minutes ago about South Florida and some of our connections down there, but also how some of our work and our experiences there have informed who we are now and how we are moving forward in our work here at the Commission. And so really what I wanted to do today was just have a very organic conversation with you about who you are, how you are approaching your work, and then of course we cannot have this conversation with you being the public safety professional that you are and not touch on some issues of public safety. And I'm wide open to any questions that you want to ask me as well. Like I said, this is really just an organic conversation. Hello. About the work. You know, we've had some really interesting things that we've done, I think, as a commission recently, where we have declared gun violence as a crisis in the city, and we haven't had the chance as two colleagues to sit down and talk about what that means individually and what that might mean moving forward, or how we could see advancing, working on that. So I want to hear anything that you have to say with regards to that, and your work and your ideas, how you're approaching the table.
I have some good stuff for you.
I know you do.
And for you too, and our other colleagues. It's so interesting. So I think we probably know the 5 people here, and Ms. Beatty, and the 6 people here. And the reason that I think you called this meeting Mayor Pro Tem is because when we're sitting on the dais, we don't have the capability to sit in an office. People don't understand that. I know we're recording. And we can socialize, but that's all we can really do. You can't talk about matters that are going to come before the commission unless we're doing it right here. So I try to make it as informal as possible, and yet, you know, we have an audience and we're being recorded. And so I'll just say that my biggest learning curve, I said this so far, has been zoning and land use, which is gigantic for the commission. That's what we're doing all the time. So it's what I study the most, read the most, talk to the most staff about, is those issues. And the one area I feel very comfortable. Hey, by the way, they can come sit here, right? Do we matter?
I'm not opposed.
If you
I
want
mean,
to sit here,
anybody from the
Ms. Betty, you can sit if you want to come join
audience
too.
would like to.
Come just sit. You're welcome to sit with us. First off, there's plenty of chairs. Yeah.
Thank you. Is this being video recorded?
It is.
It is.
Great.
Yeah.
That means that the camera you got your hair done.
That's it?
Yeah.
Nobody else wants to be? So we were talking about, maybe we should do this. Do y'all want to introduce yourselves, or no? You don't have to. You can if you'd like.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Joe Beatty.
Gordon Bernstein, homelessness. Khalid Blount.
Jennifer Smart, Communications.
Who's over there in the corner? Who's
Jertoya,
that
you might as
individual
well.
right there?
Oh, Jertoya, just the secretary.
There's no such thing as just a secretary.
Amanda Powers, Event Coordinator, Communications.
Yvette Carter, Government Affairs, Community Relations.
In the back row? You're in the back row.
Oh, Joe Dixon, Gainesville Fire and Rescue.
Okay. Well, so I think, oh, I thought I started with you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, that's your man. Hardly worked there.
Yeah, thank you. I think when the issue of gun violence came up and prevention, it is one of the areas that I have some expertise in. Obviously, we all have our arenas. And mine was just because I've been in law enforcement for 37 years, plus 26 with Gainesville Police. On a Friday, I was at Gainesville Police. Retired, I was loving it there, too. This is 2011. It was like a win-win. If I didn't get a position at Santa Fe College, I was happy as a clam right there at GPD and would have stayed. And I still have a lot of friends there, although most of them have also retired. before me, so. And then I went to Santa Fe College, and I've been there 11 and a half years. And we lead public safety. Out of the 28 colleges in the state of Florida, there's 28 public colleges, different from the university system. But out of the 28 public colleges called the Florida College System, 6 of them have police departments in the state of Florida. So that tells me something about the way Santa Fe College thinks about public safety. They were the first one in the state. I didn't know this when I got hired. First one, and we're the one that every other college, when they want to know, how do you do policing at a college in higher ed? They're calling us. They're getting our manuals and our policies and procedures. So it's a really good feeling out there. And when I saw, I thought, you have the Public Safety Committee, which I'm very grateful that you're sitting on with Commissioner Chestnut and Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you.
I thought, wow, we maybe can impact some things around the edges of violence related to policy and ordinance, because you got to come at it from a very comprehensive view. You can't take, it's not just prevention, it's education. And there is an arrest component and an enforcement, because you have to take the people who victimize off the street. I mean, that's just a fact. That's the hard edge for victimization of especially personal violence. No mercy for that. Right there, there's no compromise for somebody who hurt somebody else. They need to take the actions, or we need to take the actions we take. So, thanks for coming up with the idea of the summit, and thanks for coming up with the crisis. I think you two were the leaders on the dais as it relates to saying we got to do something. We just do. And so I was take a look at ordinances, and I thought some of the ordinances, they may be totally fine at this moment, but we have the capability to make some tweaks in ordinances that may impact some of the things, maybe. That's probably the city attorney helping us. The 4 that I've looked at, and I got, thank you, Jatoya, I appreciate it very much. Made 5 copies. I don't need my copy, so why don't I just give you, I'm going to give you all 4 for you two.
Thank you.
And then we have 3 extra copies if somebody would like a copy. Here, you can, that's mine, I think. And I'll tell you what they are. These are 4 ordinances. We may want to consider.
One packet, right?
Each one is a separate package, or if it's got a staple paper clip on it, that's an ordinance.
Oh,
Okay?
gotcha.
Got it? And there should be, I'm figuring there was 3 of us here, and a copy for the director of the communications, and if somebody else wanted to share a copy, they could do that. If anyone wants to share, welcome to share with us. You're welcome to come up and join us if you want to, sir. Okay. So let's put that here. So the first one's obvious. There is a recent research report that one of our policy research fellows did on open container and bar hours. This is no surprise. We already have it on the city commission coming up a July date.
Yeah,
Some
July
sort,
date, yeah.
I think. And what the research found is consistent with how the city operated pre-pandemic, which is there is not another city that operates currently as we do with open container. That's the sum total of this research report. We don't ask for the results. Those are the results. And the reason that open container is important is because it deals with open use of alcohol. That is not the key problem. The key is the correlation between alcohol and substance abuse or misuse, and what then can lead to potential violence. So there's a nexus. And there's research nexus. We don't have to debate that. That's just a fact of life. So we can have entertainment districts, and we can have reasonable bar hours, and we can have bottle clubs, and we can have assembly occupancy and crowd management ordinances. And still, this is one that I personally, but everybody knows how I feel about this. I think this is a correlation that would be absolutely practical and would make sense, that we cannot be talking about gun violence and partner violence and people hurting each other and say that we rolled back bar hours or open container merely for the pandemic and then not come back to where we were. Because the rationale for that was the pandemic, and that's over. So that's one. My interest really lies in the correlation between alcohol and drug use and violence.
Absolutely.
So-
Can I jump in right there?
Jump in, yeah.
Commissioner Ward, Commissioner Booth, because you touched on a number of things that I actually expressed when we were having that conversation, and you weren't yet with us at the dais when we actually arrived at where we are with that ordinance, but it is something that I'm looking forward to coming back with, because, part of the concern had been, how do we preserve our downtown district and the businesses? But I will tell you that I was very intentional in my conversation and my comments about us needing to really prioritize safety. And like you, I do believe that there is that nexus that we have to pay attention to. I'm going to stop talking because you've got a lot of other great things
okay.
there, but you said something that resonated with me. It was another
I'm glad.
touch point and another thing that we have in common there.
Well, and we have the benefit of, we have now a research report on open container, which says that municipalities don't typically operate in this way. So that's important that we look at best practices. So people that may have that, and again, we don't figure out when we ask for research reports. I know we've all done them. The intent is not find the result that we want to come out. It's research it and tell us what it is. That's true research, and so that's good. The second one deals with bottle clubs, and this is where it gets kind of a little interesting. So we have, going back in the city of Gainesville, the bottle club ordinance came about basically because not everybody sells alcohol.
Which one is that, Commissioner, if you would?
That would be, this is open container, I'm going to tell you the number. Bottle club starts with section 421 at the top, and the first paragraph says bottle club. And there's an extra copy if somebody wants a copy. Or so the bottle club ordinance may be fine in its current fashion. I think this one probably is worth a look, because what it was designed to do was take places that rented out their venues and yet served alcohol and create circumstance and procedures of how they do that. Because this is the situation where you have a place that may not want to put in place the regulations that they need, and they'll have teenagers coming in. Open up a venue, sell tickets, sell everything but the alcohol. People come in, there may be over occupancy, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I know the chief's here and can speak quite a bit about that. And then what you have is, you probably have folks who are underage drinking, and you have large numbers of them, which is a recipe for some of the violence we've had going back historically. And there's some examples. We had one that was just awful several years ago in Northeast Gainesville, in the Great Northeast, in the industrial park. And it led to one teenager killing another teenager, and it was just an awful thing. And what it was essentially something that might be regulated under the bottle club ordinance. So this one, we have to see, is there some potential opportunity for the city attorney to look at it and say, anything that other cities have that make sure that places that decide to have events in their place comply with things like occupancy limits, how they regulate alcohol, making sure that people who shouldn't have access don't have access. So that's the bottle club one, and that's kind of as far as I got. So I thought that might be of interest for us. It's been a long time since I think it's been amended, and it's probably worthy a look to see. How do we stack up against other cities? So that's that one. Let's see what we got next. So, Chief, I know the Madam Manager actually had you here related to assembly occupancy, but I'm going to cover the nuisance abatement one a little bit first, and then if you wanted to kind of tell us about the essentially crowd manager and assembly occupancy, that's important. These all really just deal with pieces of violence, right? We can't, if somebody is shooting somebody on the street, we need to deal with that in different mechanisms. That's not going to help as it relates to bottle club. But we have to attack this, as I said, comprehensively. Prevention, intervention, education, and enforcement. It's all of those things. Another ordinance that kind of, again, has some correlation and deals with is nuisance abatement. Now, nuisance abatement ordinance, did you have that, Mr. Mayor? Did you want one?
Yeah,
That's
very interested in that.
This is a really interesting ordinance, because what this was designed to do, when it was created years ago, was designed to say if you are managing an establishment and you have certain crimes in that establishment, primarily dealing with narcotics, because we had a significant problem with narcotics in establishments, then if you have too many of those incidents, the city has some civil remedies to shut that down. In other words, it forces some accountability on the part of someone who manages an establishment, and that's essential. Right? People should be accountable when they have people. Interestingly, the crimes that are in the nuisance abatement deal with delivery, manufacture, or cultivation of a controlled substance, so drugs, prostitution, or criminal street gang. So in our current nuisance abatement ordinance, those are kind of the primary events that if they occur in an establishment, the city can take some civil remedies if they have so many in so much time. What is not in here is what we're talking about. I don't know. I don't have the knowledge of how we draft a city ordinance that potentially includes other crimes that we should hold people accountable for the way they manage their establishment. But I do believe there's a nexus to doing that, where you have big events and people who have venues, and potentially, if somebody should use these other ordinances and manage properly and have trained staff and teach safety and feel comfortable in calling law enforcement and fire when there's incidents. If they do those things, that's a well-managed establishment. This is designed to hold someone accountable if they don't have a well-managed establishment. And I wonder, Mayor Pro Tem, if there might be other crimes specific to this topic under nuisance abatement. For example, personal violence, or and probably at a high level, in other words, partner violence, or crimes that involve weapons, right, which are typically felonies. If you hurt someone using a weapon, typically a felony, other than this as a weapon. So use a knife, use a gun, felony. And so this ordinance might have some real application. It's, again, things that are out on the road is not what we're talking about. We're trying to take pieces. Alcohol use out in the streets, bottle club and maintaining a place that doesn't sell alcohol. Any venue that has too many criminal things occurring in their place, that person needs to be held accountable, because there's ways that proper management can make that a safer place.
Can I say something?
Of course, say something. That's okay, right?
I'm fine with that. Yes,
Remember
Gordon.
Club Love?
I do.
Remember a couple of the promoters that worked the club, that helped the owner? I still know that these are homegrown people, educated out of Gainesville. And when they were running levels, you knew where you stood, because it wasn't just levels, there was several clubs in the area, and these promoters maintained control at that time. You might have even gone to some of the events where these people, and the violence was not there. These things that he's complaining about, they were regulated inside the industry itself. And I think that maybe if we reach out to some of these guys, and they're still around, they're still on my phone, they're still trying to do something, they'd be the people I would turn to see if, hey, you guys are in the middle of this all the time, we need to team up, partner, and make sure that every single person who has more than one person in their club at a time, they know that they have to comply with this level of performance that these folks may be able to come up with, and be able to help you without changing a whole bunch of stuff, create a team that oversees everything, including the kids, someone to look up to, and maybe that violence won't ever show up again. It's just a thought.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that, Gordon. You know, I definitely, Mr. Gordon and Commissioner Book, can really appreciate the conversation about owners of establishments. You know, I recently had reached out to the police department and the city manager about an incident that happened out in East Gainesville at an establishment that sells alcoholic beverages. There was, I believe, an after party, and it turned into a situation where several young girls were fighting. Unfortunately, one of those young girls was seriously injured, left concussed, and was trying to get a police report so that she could pursue some level of justice and remedy in this situation. But the conditions of that parking lot in the evening that, I don't know, roughly 8 young women entered into this brawl were concerning. And so when you look at the fact that there had to be a manager or someone on staff inside of that establishment, I saw the video. As a matter of fact, sent the video to staff here. There should be something that we can do. I don't know what the rules are in terms of parking out there. I don't know what other laws or rules may have been broken in that situation, but when you watch that, it was so troubling and problematic for a number of reasons, but you also saw an inability to leave the space safely. So all of those things, I think, come together. The manager or the people who are responsible for whatever bar or establishment, but the surroundings too that get created in these types of situations. So yeah, I hear you on that, and I'm definitely,
Describe the parking lot. So the inside you're telling, you said the parking lot was also problematic.
Well,
What were the
just-
kind of the issues there?
the occupancy. Talked a little bit about occupancy. There were a number of cars and a number of people, and when people did need to get out because this brawl broke out, you couldn't do it safely.
Yeah, that's a problem.
You could not do it safely. And so it's very clear on the video. And let's just be really clear. We have to figure out how we do this, because the police were called and it took them a while to respond. So how do these things get prioritized? How do we get the police on staff to be able to respond? So we're facing, a number of different issues here. And it's almost like, how do you eat this elephant? Well, you eat them one bite at a time.
You take pieces
You gotta
and
get
you deal with the pieces
piece
that we
after
can
piece.
deal with. Thank you.
So we've got a few repeat offenders, so to speak, in town that we know they've had, in at least one incident, multiple homicides on property. And not in just one occasion, but multiple occasions. Let's say I own a liquor store and I'm doing booming business with folks that the police and the community know are not savory characters and that bad things are happening in my parking lot. But the people congregate in my parking lot because they know I'm willing to do business with them. And I'm cashing big checks. And I have to have some responsibility. The city must be able to, the city must have a capacity to say, Harvey, you are profiting from this, and you are therefore, it looks like you're creating a situation where bad things can happen on your property. You don't get to just say, oh, I sold everybody the liquor, but it's not my problem. We have to create a situation where there is responsibility for the person who is profiting off of this. And if we know who they are consistently, and we know because we have records where we keep going back to the same places for various violent acts, including homicide, shame on us if we don't find a way to help hold folks responsible in that scenario.
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. Responsibility, but then the enforcement piece, right? What has to happen? And this is probably a conversation for the chief, who I don't see here. Let me phrase it like this. We're in a position now, I think, with tomorrow, literally installing a new assistant chief, where we may have at least the beginning of some leverage to start to address the enforcement of everything that we're saying. Because yes, people need to be held responsible, but if being held responsible can't be enforced, this whole conversation is moot. So for me, it literally is about, how does the enforcement piece happen? Because the situation that I'm telling you about was not responded to in an immediate way.
When was it, was it like a weekend, was it a lot of times it's just for that particular situation, it's dependent upon, it's like if it's football game Saturday and someone calls for a loud party, for example, at 1 in the morning, it's not that it's not a priority, it's that on the scale of priorities, it ends up towards the
sure.
very bottom because.
For sure.
So I wonder if it had
And
something to do
I
with
get,
that.
I get that, and that could be it. I don't remember what it was. I can certainly find
Yeah, I mean,
the video footage and the information. But my concern is whenever it is, we're talking about situations where the violent acts do occur, where there is an individual. In other words, how do you engage that property owner or that establishment owner to enforce it?
I think
How
there's
does
two,
it happen?
that's a good one, that's a good question. There's two elements. One, I don't know if you set that up specifically for the next ordinance, but that deals with the training for the staff that don't just own. So like Mr. Mayor, you were talking about the owner. This deals with the people who are responsible. Often the owner's not on premise, right? This is especially a place when people rent out venues and stuff. This ordinance was, I want to say it was developed under Commissioner Master DeCaza some time ago, and with GPD and some folks. And this is, so there's two ways you enforce. Oh, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted
Yeah, you want-
to,
go
I
for
think
it.
you're moving on to something else, and I just want to make a comment here.
Go ahead.
You're talking about like immediate enforcement. You know, there's a problem, have a call. That's something we've been talking about. A, you need more police people, and I'll just leave it at that without all the extra. But the other thing that is concerning, when Mr. Ward says that, you know, we know who these people are, they're repeat establishments, you're talking about enforcement, you know, that's past the time that you have the incident. You know, the city has not
Reactive.
been following through. It seems that if you behave badly, then there should be either something in the ordinance, I wonder if there's anything in state statute, you know, that would go to it, that would give you some leverage. So if these things are happening, you've got repeat offenders. I think there are two different parts to that. That's all I was trying to point out. There's the immediate response, and we know that that's a lot of budgetary things, and we know that I've heard policemen say, they've said it publicly, you know, like sometimes things get out of control, and they just doing barely what they can because if they did more, they didn't have enough backup and stuff. So that's one issue. But it seems to me the other issue, and that, you know, I think the burden has been, should have been on the commission, on the city to address this if we know who the repeat offenders are. In some cases, it looks to me like some of these people are having influence in what your ordinances are about the bars, about open containers and stuff like that. That, you know, I've seen that the bar owners have what I've considered in some cases, you know, undue influence over the direction that the commission went in past years. I'm not talking about this commission, I'm not talking about the one immediately before you, but over the years, I've watched that happen. So I don't want to stop him from going on, but
Okay.
I think this was a good place to at least make that
Insert
comment.
that.
It also
Thank
made me
you.
think
Thank you, Ms.
also
Beatty.
about your question with enforcement.
Mhm.
I was really thinking on the more reactive side too, which is right. So you have civil enforcement, which is things like this assembly occupancy and crowd manager. That's the civil, the bureaucratic steps that we can take. And then you have what you're talking about. Police need to respond, especially they tier their response based on what's the incident. If someone's getting hurt, that's a top response, and everything falls below that, right? So life safety comes first.
So in just a quick reading of this feels more like, and I think it's appropriate, code enforcement.
Which one?
When we talk about enforcing businesses and places that are where things keep happening.
All right.
You're doing that with codes enforcement as much or more.
That's
than-
clearly, the assembly occupancy
An
is,
officer, right.
what we have is a civil citation process.
Yeah.
People get a fine, they may have the capability to have a hearing, can be an escalating fine. There are some of our civil citations, which are also, somebody can actually be arrested for open container.
Right.
But they decriminalized open container and a couple other ordinances many years ago, so that's probably your absolute worst offender, right? If someone's getting arrested for an open container in this day and age, they just could not seem to behave and was causing all kind of disruption to the community, and they probably did it overall. But so on the enforcement side, police response, absolutely. The civil enforcement typically comes from code, and it comes from assembly occupancy, which is the last ordinance. It's forcing a place to say, the people who are managing the establishments own it, manage it. They have to have certain training. They have to know how to ID. They have to know what over-serving has to be. It's basically something that used to be called safe serve, but that's an old term. So the manager, let me see here, hold on, I gotta put my glasses on.
Manager's not here, but the.
Don't laugh at
chief's
that,
here, yeah.
right there, that's not funny. The, Chief, did you want to talk about the assembly occupancy and crowd manager ordinance? Are you comfortable talking about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, then tell us a little bit about that ordinance and how that works, because that is an enforcement mechanism.
Come up, you want me up here or?
I think that's really up to the mayor pro tem.
Absolutely,
She
come
decides.
right up, come right up.
Yes, good afternoon,
Good
everyone.
afternoon.
I am Joe Dixon. I am Chief of Gainesville Fire and Rescue. Greetings, and regards to the crowd manager is, of course, references NFPA 1. That is the standard, and it's also, I don't know if the commissioner gave you a copy of the city's ordinance code, or City of Gainesville Code of Ordinances is listed under Article 5, Assembly, Occupancy, Safety in Section 1050 through 51. And it talks about, we contact the bars, assemblies, and typically anything over 50 people, they require one crowd manager, 50 to 250. When it goes beyond 250 to 500, they need two, and every additional 250, an additional crowd manager. What this is, and what the thought behind having crowd managers at events is that history, the reason that we have certain laws and codes and fires that something bad has happened. So we know that typically when there are music concerts, festivals, certain type of sporting events, tournaments, conferences, especially when alcohol is involved, that, you know, these are things where we have to go out and we have to do a safety assessment, and we require them to have, and now that's why they're required to have crowd managers. The crowd manager process, it also lists under punishment and penalty, Section 1.9 of the City of Gainesville Code, and it talks about the citations, $500, that could be up to an imprisonment for 60 days, as well as the cost. Now, not in the case of this, because this has to deal with some type of danger, but for any type of abatement, it would be the cost of the abatement as well. So that's the premise, where it's listed at in the code. Are there any other questions regarding the crowd? And the crowd manager program, I'll tell you this, when they, during the course of COVID, they actually went away from doing the in-person, and they found actually online programs where the business owners were able to send their people online at a cost of about $20. They're able to get a certificate. We review it, go over it with them. That is we haven't gone back to in-person. We will do in-person, but that has been so much more cost-effective for the city, because typically we have to take people away from the work they do and doing inspections to teach the class, and the recovery on that is not the same. So that has been something that, you know, but I talked to our fire marshal, and he said, yes, anytime we're ready to pull the trigger on that, but because of that, basically the availability of the online courses, they have not, crowd manager training online course, they have not gone back to in-person since COVID. And are there any questions?
I don't have any questions. Does anybody else have any questions? Thank you for that, Chief Dixon.
So
That
how
was
we
very
work
interesting.
proactively. Oh, go ahead,
You
sir.
talked about codes enforcement, but does codes have people on call for weekend and evening? 'Cause,
Yes.
You know,
No.
they'll go out in the daytime and nothing's happening.
No, our personnel, we work very closely with actually law enforcement. So when there are events downtown, our people will be downtown, especially when we have what we call, it's like, I mean, it's just like law enforcement. We have data that say that typically there's going to be a problem at this club, and that'll be the club where our people will make sure we show up and show our face if they are basically repeat offenders. It is known to both professions. If they're repeat offenders, we're going to be there, and, you know, to make sure that they know that we have our eye on you. We're going to cite you or do whatever we have to do to keep people safe.
I think his question's different.
It's a criminal, it's a criminal violation.
I
What we're
think
talking
it's-
about, it's not a civil violation.
But, okay.
Criminal violation.
Oh, was that I'm sorry. I thought he asked me.
Codes department.
No, you talked about earlier, like bottle clubs and stuff, that codes enforcement would deal with it.
Well, they're typically, those are typical civil violations where it goes through a bureaucratic process for a bottle club. No?
There's a license for bottle club, like that the city issues, for the bottle club section. The
is
assembly
different.
occupancy issues that
Correct.
Chief is talking about, that's a criminal violation. Code enforcement, the code enforcement department, like we're mixing up some terms like, code enforcement department, they only issue civil citations, not criminal ones. Criminal ones are gonna be law enforcement, that we're talking about. Because it's a violation of, section 1-9 of the code. So code enforcement can only write civil citations, not criminal citations.
Right, but we have both, yeah, I don't think that changes what we were talking about. What we were talking about was we enforce in various ways, and it can be via civil citation or a process or a fine. And we can also enforce via, we're going in, and if arrest is what it is, arrest is what it is. If somebody, if the fire department goes in on 1 AM to a bar, and the occupancy on the door
It's
says
250 and they're 300.
and there's 600 people in
Right.
there, we got a problem, and it's a life safety problem, and there's alcohol involved, and it's late night, so you probably have, there's a whole host of problems that occur based on that fact, and we can take action right there. And there, again, this is an interior type of ordinance, right? It's for inside, but these are, the fall's coming, and we have got to avoid the problems that we can avoid by being as proactive as possible, collectively with public safety and on the civil side, with things like the bottle club, and see if there might be. So these are the ordinances I had, Mayor Pro Tem, just for. I was just thinking kind of on the policy side.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I greatly appreciate that. Is there any more conversation amongst anybody around the table? Joe, did I see your hand
No,
with regards to that?
not about this.
Okay, okay. Something else in general, or?
Are you about to close the meeting?
No, no, no.
Do you have more business?
We do still have a little more
Okay,
business.
then I'll wait till the
Okay.
end.
Not a problem, not a problem.
Thank you.
Yes, so first of all, thank you very much, Commissioner Book, for bringing these ordinances
Yes, ma'am.
forward. I think this really gives me something to chew on, because I'll take this, and this will be some good bedtime reading.
I don't think it's
tonight.
that.
Yes.
Nightmares.
Well, no, to be honest with you, you drew my attention to some things, honestly, that were not on my radar. And so this is something that I want to make myself, public safety has been what you've done for the last several decades. This whole foray, outside of something that is very surface, without the legal detail that you have, and law enforcement detail that you have, this is something that is very, very new to me. So I can appreciate this information that you brought forward. Colleague, did I see you? I didn't see your hand, did I? I want to make sure I'm not going on without you. So that, I think, is something that potentially, hopefully, I don't know whether you're going to be around for the gun violence summit.
It's Sunday, Monday.
That is Sunday, Monday. Will you be there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, excellent. So that Monday is the policy day, and perhaps you can bring some of this forward, and we can have a really robust conversation that will include some of these ideas. I know that Mr. Mayor is going to be facilitating, or at least leading some of the conversations on that day around some policy, and I'll be there, and I have some ideas myself. But this, I think, Commissioner Book, is certainly something that I believe would be some wonderful conversation starters and some great ways for us to springboard. Yeah, absolutely, off of those things. I see that you have, may I hold this?
No.
I didn't bring my, yes, I may.
It's supposed to be informal. I think
Which
you
is why I'm
two
doing that.
probably had the
Yeah.
hand in putting this together for
Well-
me, so thank you.
No, and I'm glad that you brought this, because this is the letter that the city manager, I don't know, has she sent this out? Has this gone out?
It has.
I know it went out to us, right?
Okay.
Did it?
All right, I didn't
Okay.
know if this was
It's
just
also on
still
the
a
website,
draft.
I think, at the moment, right? Director, do you know?
I do not believe it is yet on the website.
Mhm.
It did go out to stakeholders in the community.
Well, we have a
Okay.
tab. What I meant was there's already a tab related to gun violence.
There is
Yeah.
the website.
Yes, ma'am.
Portal, if you will, or, yeah, tab, I guess you could call it, that is on the city website. But this isn't there, right, Jennifer? This is not on that?
There
Okay.
are plans for that to be added.
For sure, got you. But I think this will be a good place, Commissioner Book, for you to bring a lot of these ideas. But just because I'm talking about it and everyone else in here has not had a chance to see this, this is pretty much to the commissioners, just inviting us to the Gun Violence Summit, stressing the importance of it, and just talking about how we have already begun a lot of the work that will be discussed and a deeper dive will be taken into on the
You
5th
can
and
pass it
6th.
around, if you want to pass it around. just
Yeah,
so
you
can-
may definitely take a
Yeah.
look at it. But I did want to kind of lean in a little bit more on that commissioner book, because this is an issue that is really, really crucial to me. And I have been, probably since I came to the commission, really trying to find meaningful ways to move the needle in the city. What we know is we have an issue that is proliferating. And we know we have an issue that is proliferating amongst younger people, which is really sad for a number of reasons. You know, the incident that I mentioned to you, while it was not gun violence, it is violence.
It's violence.
There were a lot of young ladies that were involved in that. There were some older, but then there were some young women that were involved.
Alcohol also, you said?
It was in front of a liquor store. It was in front of a liquor store, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, to the point in the conversation that we just had, that is where we have to lean in. And it's right next door to a facility where a murder has taken place, gun violence
Okay.
has taken place.
Just zeroed
So
in
when
on it.
you-
I think we
yeah.
know where you're talking about.
Now you know where I'm talking about,
Mhm.
okay? So we're talking about an area that needs some attention, because when you start talking about responsibility, you know, of people who are owning or managing a space, there's some real opportunity there. But I wanted to lean in a little bit more and talk about gun violence. And Mr. Mayor, I'm here. I'm glad you're here, rather. I'm here. I'm here, but almost not. I wanted to lean in just a little bit more and speak a little more in granular detail, because as everyone in this room probably knows, this is a topic that is really near and dear to me. And I say that because of every time Chief Scott comes before us and makes a presentation, we see the numbers. And we see the groups that this violence is proliferating amongst. And that's troublesome to me. So I think the steps that we've taken, I'll go back to when I think I'd been here, I don't know, maybe not a year yet. And I held a town hall meeting that was both virtual and in person. It was a hybrid format that I took on, and we had roughly 1,100 people that attended that town hall. And it was because everyone in this city knows how crucial and how critical this is. We're at critical mass, and everyone wanted to know how, A, the city was going to respond, and how, B, they could be a part of this. I want staff to hear me say this, because Yvette, I don't believe that I've had the chance to articulate this to you, but I want to bring this back to you now. Because you are one of the individuals that's pulling the summit together, I believe that the information and data that was gathered from that summit needs to be pulled in to this. I don't think that there should not be that disconnect. In other words, we had a conversation with the community. We heard from them. 1,100 of them. Oh, when was that? Somebody look that up. Jertoya, would you kindly find when my town hall was on gun violence? But it was a little over a year ago, okay? But if Jertoya would kindly please research that and get that date for Commissioner Book. What I think needs to happen here is that connection for two reasons. First of all, the community does not need to think that they came and shared something with us, and a year has gone by, and it just falls flat. We've had the opportunity to think. The problem has grown over that time, and here we are coming back at this summit, and there needs to be some level of response to that. So I can't give you direction here, but you hear my heart. I'll speak with the city manager. If I need to bring this back in another format, however it needs to happen, I think that it is very logical and necessary for us to connect those dots. Are you hearing what I'm saying, Yvette? Okay, thank you. So we had the town hall. We declared gun violence a crisis. We have a summit that is coming up. And what I'm hoping, Mr. Mayor, is that when we leave this summit, we will not have just had a great conversation over 2 days. I'm really hoping that we can actually impact this.
Do something.
We can do something, for sure, but we can definitely impact the policy like I know you have plans to do. But also, that this work, because it is work, that has to be sustained if we're going to see a difference, that somehow this work gets embedded in the city. Now, I brought this up probably, in the last meeting, I believe it was, and we had a pretty robust conversation about the idea of a task force, and I know Commissioner Book, you thought, you didn't like the name task force, you liked the idea, but probably thought the name of a task force maybe brought something with it.
It's more than just a name.
But I don't even want to focus on that just yet, because really what my point is that I think there has to be a way that we figure out how to engage with the citizens of Gainesville on this situation. For me, that's a priority. I don't think you can declare something a crisis and just leave it alone. I understand.
Then it must not be a crisis. It either
then-
is or it isn't. So
Well, we're making the statement that it's not really a crisis to us if we do that. We're making a statement that it has been a crisis only in name. And I don't believe that that's what our intention is. So I do want to make sure that we are intentional as we move forward and as we chart a path as to how we do this. There are a number of things that are important to me. That task force is important to me because that task force pulls together institutional partners, it pulls together community members, it pulls together nonprofits, et cetera, to do this work. We've acknowledged the fact that we are limited in what we will be able to do moving forward. We're having to sharpen our pencils, we're having to respond to some budgetary concerns. That I understand. But I also understand that when we're talking about public safety, something that is supposed to be our priority overall, that there's some things that we just find a way to do.
I think you're right. I think that notwithstanding the task force designation, okay, I'm not.
You don't like that designation.
No,
What
I
is
don't.
that? Tell me why. What is that? Tell me.
Because often, when you bring multiple partners to the table, number one, somebody has to be the lead.
Mm-hmm.
And that often will slow things down. We don't want the city to be the lead, I don't think, in a task force scenario, because that's a lot of citizen involvement and that's a lot of ideas. It will actually slow us down. So actually, we agree in concept. In concept, talking, you talk, and at some point, there's time for action, right?
It has to be.
So we have to be doing things. Hopefully, the weekend's coming up, the fall's coming up. We're in bars. We're out actively patrolling. Code enforcement is basically looking at the properties they should be looking at to make sure they're not dangerous. If we have intelligence that indicates there's going to be a venue or an event somewhere, we should be on that. That's action. That should be occurring no matter what happens on the dais. I think often a task force has to have single focus and single mission, and it will slow down if we attempt to control it as a partner.
What will slow down?
Getting things done.
Okay.
Getting things done.
So-
But your concept of the partners and doing stuff, I think we have the capability to do that.
Yeah, and so, and here's what I want to say, and I can respect what you're saying, and I want to allow other folks to chime in here. That could be true, but the fact that task forces are springing up all over this country, and that people are committing to the work in a unified way with the public health approach that we've said we're going to take, I guess I am confused now, because the city unanimously supported a motion that said, we are declaring this as a crisis. It is a public health crisis. We have to do something beyond that. It then means that perhaps we convene this. Perhaps we're the glue that holds them together. We bring the first meeting together, and I'm going to be involved. Because
I would suspect we'd all be involved.
I mean, yeah, but
because it's important.
It's definitely important. But I mean, what I heard from most of my colleagues, or many of my colleagues at the last meeting, was there was a concern about time, there was a concern about staff resources, and I understand all that. But there is also a concern about human life. And there is a concern about generational impacts over time. That if we don't start addressing this, and I believe addressing this as a city, just like Orlando, just like Other places throughout this state are convening task forces, municipal governments are convening task forces and literally giving them the ball to do the work. I think we'll be making a huge mistake, and we'll be sending a message to the citizens of this town that we don't want to send and that we don't need to send. How we do it, I think, is critical. You know, do we want to do anything slow? No, we don't. But I think
Deliberate.
everything needs,
Deliberate.
you have to be deliberate, and you have to be intentional, and things have to get planned out. I looked at some of the blueprints that are coming out of some of these cities to address violence. And they don't happen overnight. You know who builds the blueprints? Those task forces. And it happens over a period of several months or a year. So just like Rome wasn't built in a day, our strategic approach, our sustained approach to addressing violence and gun violence will not happen overnight, and it shouldn't. But I think someone has to do the work. And what I heard was, we don't want to commit staff to doing that. But
That
I need
actually
to
was a little
commit
different.
someone.
I'm a little
So,
bit.
yeah, let me, I'll tell you what my thoughts were on it.
Okay.
And continue to be. I can't speak for anybody else. My concern is that we are one lane out of about 8 lanes institutionally. And those people in those other 7 lanes or so don't have to do what we ask them to do. They're their own organizations. And for instance, as much as we might want to control what happens at Buell High School or Eastside High School, they are not in our city, not in our jurisdiction, and B, more appropriate to a whole other government entity, the school board. So we might say, this is what has to happen. We've done the work and we believe this is what has to happen, and we need to lead you in this direction. But our friends at the sheriff's office or at the county or at the school board may say, that's a great idea, we're not going to do it that way. Just institutionally, we are, as much as we have as much as we have the bully pulpit in lots of ways as the city of Gainesville, we are not on co-equal footing with some of our other partners. And that's just a reality of how this is working. So one of the things I would like us to do at the summit is everybody lay out, this is what our organization feels absolutely responsible for. Here's our core service. And when the city of Gainesville says, this is our core service, this is what we have to offer, this is what we do. And the state attorney's office says, this is what we do, this is our core service. And the sheriff says, this is what I believe is my core service, and the school board, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody lays out, this is what we believe our lane is. Then we look and say, all right, cool, if everybody's really got their lane, what is the median in between those lanes? And how do we reach across and help each other in those no man's land medians, that neutral ground, that is not anybody's lane, but where kids are falling through? That's kind of my hope for the summit, the policy day, is to be able to make sure everybody knows what everybody else is doing and how then we can reach across to be helpful to each other in that. And you mentioned convening authority. I think that is absolutely the thing that the city of Gainesville can offer most in this situation.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
But I also think that I want to hear what other municipalities are doing, how they have done it. I think that's critical. That's good to know, because I'm not satisfied with just saying what we can or cannot do, because we've never done it. We haven't.
Well,
But there are entities that have already entered into this work. I want to use them as case studies. I want to see how they have done it. And if it is something that makes sense for us to do, then I certainly would love to consider it. I don't want to rule that out right now, Mr. Mayor, because I think we are at a critical mass where I'm not comfortable with ruling it out. I'm not, because I can't sleep at night. See, the cars pass my house. The police department passes my house 2 and 3 times a night, okay? So for me, it's personal. For me, it's very personal. I'm tired of standing next to my friends burying their sons. I feel a very deep and intense responsibility to find meaningful ways to respond to this. And convening, thank you, absolutely. But the citizens of Gainesville expect this city to respond. And all I want to know is how we will do it.
Think that's
Because
fair.
we can say,
Can we back up a little bit?
yes,
though?
we can.
I want to be really careful that we honor the folks who are already responding.
Well, I'm
And
not
not-
dismissing them. I want to be clear about that. I've never dismissed them.
So what some folks hear is we're not doing anything.
Why would they hear
And
that?
because we've actually said that.
I never said it.
When we say we haven't done anything, which I think we've said 2 or 3 times.
No, no, no. When I say, okay, well, let me be clear. Where's the camera? Because
I don't know, where's the
when,
camera?
yeah,
Up there.
Okay.
I
We haven't
did not
done
know,
enough.
I did not know that anything that I said was ever interpreted as we haven't done anything. We haven't done a task force. In the context of my whole discussion just then, I was talking about a task force, okay? So that's what I'm talking about. And I am talking about a sustained collective effort. We have not taken a public health approach
You're
as a
right.
city. We have not done that, okay? So please, I want the police department and the fire department and everybody else to know, I know you are doing what you can. Hello, and thank you so much, new Assistant Chief. Good to see you. I'll be there tomorrow. I don't want anybody to think that I don't see your work and your effort. I don't want you to think that I believe you're not doing anything. I know you are. But I also know that there is more to do. There is more to be done, and I know that other places are doing it. So what I'm hoping to get out of the summit is what those other places are doing and what we might be able to borrow from them.
Absolutely.
I'm actually in agreement with everything you said. The question is, what are we doing and who's going to continue to do it?
How do we
Whether
embed
there's-
this work?
Whether there's someone who's coordinating it or not, are they
Here-
going to, I think we do.
When
have
we
to.
are gone,
Who's
years
good?
after
That's right.
this summit, years after this summit, gun violence is still going to be an issue. Because it's not that it's new. It's old.
And it's
it's
not
just
just gun
changing.
violence too.
It's
Right?
violence.
It's, there you go.
It's violence. There is a culture of violence that is proliferating that no one has found a way to solve. But people are coming up with strategic ways to approach it. And I suspect this will have to shift. It will have to morph on down the line over the years. But how do we address it now is what my concern is. How do we address it strategically, systematically, and how do we sustain that?
I think one way, so this is a good question, because basically we want to hold other entities accountable, but I don't think we'll have to hold them accountable as a city. You know why? Because the entire community will hold the schools accountable and the county and our collective law enforcement and fire if we're not doing the job. So I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
There are a couple of really good, your concept is good. The coordination for me actually had nothing, and I never heard you say nothing's being done. No, this thing, it is right, you're right, Ms. Brand, it's not enough. You can't, on the one hand, say there's a crisis, and on the other hand, not treat it as a crisis.
And then public health.
That's impossible to do. It's
Public
all of us.
health has a specific, that is not just, those aren't just two words that come together.
No.
That is a particular approach. And it is a comprehensive, unified approach.
It is.
So since we said that's how we're approaching this.
It's
It
societal.
now
That
becomes.
makes it a societal thing,
Right, it
isn't
now
it?
becomes that. But to
Yeah.
your point,
Yeah.
these were the people that were at our last public safety meeting in terms of institutional partners, okay? This is a pretty decent list, and this is not exhaustive because this is, yes, and you can feel free to pass that around. The school board could not be present that particular day because Shane had another meeting. But we have people who are chomping at the bit, who A, want to be a part of a task force, who B, want to know how they can help. And so I'm very excited for them to come to the summit. I hope that they do come. And help us to chart a pathway forward. Because these are individuals and organizations that do have resources in a myriad ways.
Yeah,
You know,
big.
the hospitals, HCA, North Florida was there. Eric Lawson, I greatly appreciated him for coming out. but the hospitals have a role in this. And he wants to come forward with what his ideas are. No, we don't tell them what to do. That's not the public health approach. The public health approach is everyone's lane that they are in, they do come to you. They do say, here's what we are prepared to do, here's what we're able to do. But what I would like to do is something that's along the lines of what's being done out in Louisiana. And the mayor of Louisiana is taking a generational approach to this.
Where in Arizona?
No, no, Louisiana, Louisiana.
Oh, Louisiana.
She's taking a generational approach, meaning years down the line, they will look at the data and they will see how gun violence has
They'll
been
track
impacted.
what is happening.
Well,
with
and that
communities
was one of the
stuff.
things that I said when I made the motion, that data is such a critical part of this. So however we convene this, whoever does take the lead, however these entities come together, perhaps the city, I envision, is the glue in all of this. The city is the glue. I think we have to, to me it doesn't make sense. It seems negligent for us just not to. It's just about how we do it, okay? At the end of the day, if we're not collecting the data from this, we're missing the whole point. And we're missing the opportunity to really stem this. Joe, did I see your hand?
Yeah, with all due respect to all of your ideas, this kind of bothers me at this point. Not that I don't think that this is all important, but I really think the core services, the core mission of the city, you, the commissioners, right now is budgetary. I think, we're talking about the open containers and what we've done till you can have open containers anywhere. Some of the rules, there are things that you have direct influence over in the short term. I mean, some of this is long-term, and yes, it needs to be done. But it seems to me that right now, that the budget is the important thing, that funding a police department like it was in the 80s, 90s, when I was here and it was top-notch. I mean, this police department, and this is not any reflection on the people who serve, but it has gone like downhill because I believe it's because they haven't been funded properly. You have vacancies, and you're putting on more people at the top. You need more people on the street. You need to have rules. Everything got worse when you had the open container. Now you're inviting people from all over the world that doesn't get to walk around with alcohol everywhere. So I think that what bothers me about the summit idea is the short run, is that it's a long-term thing. And right now you have the tools that if you all step up and do it and properly fund our life safety people, our police, and help them get back to where they were and not be shorthanded. If you look at the rules like the open container, and you could have taken that action. I think somebody, Mr. Book perhaps, brought that up, trying to get it back to the pre-pandemic rules. You certainly had citizens there talking about it. We know that's contributing to it. So I've got a problem with this creating another thing and putting it out, because I really think our energy, I think the task force is good. The city's energy on it at this point, I think there's a lot of things you can do quickly to make a dent. It's all long-term. I mean, we didn't get to this without 100 years of history and people being put upon. GRU and the utility rates, 15 years we've been coming in saying, for the people that are put upon, when you put people in a position, they gotta choose food or utilities or whatever, that's another stressor. So I really think you need to look at what tools you've got here right now and stop looking at what I'm gonna call pet projects and spending budget money on things that are better put off. I've said it before publicly, it's like when a family has a problem with finances, you cut out the frills and you bring some of this stuff back. And so I support in concept, but I think a lot of what Mr. Book is comments about, the task force, I think it's just another thing that's, by your own definition, it's going to take a long time. And I think we need to do the things that you really should be responsible for here and now, and putting all this energy into the current budget and what we're going to do. And I haven't seen evidence that things are going to change drastically for the police. You got empty seats.
Well, and
so
to that,
it's just,
to that point.
Just my comment.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beatty, and I always appreciate your insight. You have never shied away from coming to meetings and being very, very candid with us, and that's good. That's a good thing. I would like to say this to the point, Mr. Mayor, the funding for the summit came from ARPA, did it not? So
I don't care where funds.
no, I'm just saying, I wanted you to be clear.
An external
Yeah,
source.
Right, so it wasn't, because I hear you. I hear your concerns, Ms. Beatty, and I just want you to know
Yeah.
that, okay?
The funds and the
The
time.
other piece is, I think that the police department, I certainly will never speak for them. The city manager has stepped out, but I know that they'll be happy to speak to you about what their strategies are in terms of bringing on new staff. They have been working on some things, from what I understand. I see Chief and Jamie back there nodding. We do have a new chief, and I know the assistant chief, and I know that you're saying from the bottom up, but it's been my understanding, Ms. Beatty, that they have been doing some pretty extensive work in terms of
But you
filling
have to give them
vacancies.
the money to do some of the stuff they need to do. Their
There-
salaries
there's
need to
additional,
come up.
there's additional money that's allotted in the budget
We're actually
for them.
increasing
Their budget is increasing.
Fire and
it's-
police are the
would you
only
like to-
divisions
would you like
that
to
got the
come
big
up,
increases, and it's
Chief?
millions.
Substantial increases.
Yeah,
It's increasing, Ms. Beatty.
Got to slow down,
Okay,
sorry.
thank you
Those
very
are
much,
the
Mr.
two.
Mayor.
Good afternoon.
thanks for initiating.
I'd like to say, for us right now, money is not the issue. It's the national, really, condition that recruitment of people into professional law enforcement is very difficult today. In large part in the perception of the way that law enforcement has been portrayed in the media. Some things, quite frankly, are factual, and some have been exploited for purposes that are not positive for law enforcement. Locally, we are making strides as far as trying to recruit folks in. We hired 12 and just put them through field training about 6 months ago. None of those people, I think, made it through. We have another group that starts this coming August, and then before the end of the year, we have a third group. Traditionally, we've been doing 2 groups a year. We've changed that to 3. So we do believe that we're going to have a positive impact on getting toward that resolution with that issue as far as staffing. But that is not something that's going to happen overnight. The staffing difficulties that we have did not arise overnight. That took years to build up, and you were right in one part in that it was due in part because of some negotiations with contracts that didn't go as people thought they should, and it caused a large exodus of folks. But this is not like hiring mechanics, and no, not to demean mechanics. We can't hire a person and then give them an orientation and put them out on the road in a month. For us, hiring is at minimum a 9-month process, and in cases for people who have no experience, it's over a year. It could be a year and a half. It depends on the type of training that you provide. And we can't shortcut that training because that's how people get into training, get into issues when you see national incidents. But I will say that the commission has been very, and particularly the city manager, been very supportive of our needs and as far as us trying to address shortcomings and being competitive, because now they're paying bonuses to sign up. You know, you're getting people recruiting from Texas, we lose people to Washington State. You know, that's how serious the recruitment is on a national level.
Can I?
Sure,
Can I speak
go ahead,
to
Jeff.
what I've seen, what I've heard, you know, I've spoken to police people, to firemen, the life safety people, and I've watched it over the years. I watched, you know, when you used to be able, if I accidentally dialed 911, I'd get a call back, was I okay? You know, and I've watched it go down, and what I think I know, what I think I've heard from you and the chief before, that we didn't keep up with the salaries. We lost a lot of people, good seasoned people, because we were not paying competitive. They'll go down the street, what I hear is we train them well, and then they leave for better job, you know, better pay and stuff. And so it doesn't make me feel better. I mean, I'm glad you're trying to fill the positions, but, you know, we're bringing in new people and we're training them, and they're not seasoned, and the seasoned guy that was beside them training them isn't there. And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. And you know, so a significant bump to the people that are here in uniform today, still compared to what others are getting. You know, when I hear police people say they work overtime because that's how they can get enough to really live. When you see what, you know, the base salaries are and where that's coming from, and that doesn't reflect on the police. It reflects on the city having allowed it to get that way, so that the fire department's got a reputation for training people too. And you shouldn't have to be offering signing bonuses. Talk about data. I guess I'd like to see the data. How many people that took signing bonuses are here 2 years later? You know, that's not always what does it. When I hear from people who are ready to leave that would stay longer, but you know, how things are just isn't good for them. So then you're going to have the cycle of, you know, keep bringing new people on, and my criticisms are basically of commission and commissions past, and you know, what may look like I don't know what the percentage increase is, but when I see some salaries, like, am I wrong that some people are getting like $40,000, $45,000 a year to start to lay your lives on the line, that they're going out and they're working overtime and they're working 60 and 80 hours a week to get the money they need? So now we have fatigued people out on the street and putting their lives and other people's lives in jeopardy. And please, everybody that's hearing me, it's not about the people that serve. It's about the people that lead. And I'll stop.
Again, I will emphasize that our manager and our current commission, have been very supportive. We brought several issues forth to them that we thought we needed to be more competitive, and we had total support for those changes. So I have to commend them for that. In the past, that has not been the case. You know, we've had situations years ago where the contracts were our ability to compete with local, and now the state has changed the way that they pay, and so now where we would be more competitive or be a better location for people that worked in smaller counties because the pay wasn't quite the same. Now the smaller counties are being paid up to what we're paying. So it's right now, I would say that it's because of the level of people that are attending the academy and the shortage, I think you're gonna see the wages continue to rise, and we're trying to stay competitive as best we can, given the budgetary constraints we have.
I think the mayor pro tem knows the two divisions out of all the areas of the city with essentially 6 charters right now, the only 2 divisions that have major increases in the money is police and fire.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's and that's why we're cutting with the 60-something positions, 22 people, and 40-something other vacancies that are frozen or strategically gone. So that's it. I don't know how much time we
No,
had, Mayor Pro Tem,
I
but I
mean,
had
I-
a couple more things for you that might be
And I want
important.
you to feel free to share. Thank you very much, Chief Scott, and
Thanks,
thank
Chief.
you, Ms. Beatty.
Thanks, ma'am.
I'm so glad that everybody's passionate about this conversation. I've had other sunshine meetings and never this audience. But this
This is
is good.
important.
Yeah, no, this is very important, you know, and it just goes to show you how concerned the citizens of Gainesville are about this subject matter. So please, feel free to share more.
I'll be quick
You know,
first.
I'm fine, but please feel
The
free.
partners, so we have some partners. You tried that, you're right, by the way. The minute you classify something as public health, it takes it out of just, I got it, what's the cops doing? What's fire doing? And that's really helpful, because then you have things like what are the schools doing? What's parole and probation? What is our public health partners doing on the education side? Because that's where they can make some inroads, and that is helpful. It brings more partners to the table. I think we're probably pretty close, by the way, in concept to what you're saying, notwithstanding that terrible term that you keep throwing around. But, so parole and probation, this is a biggie. Parole and, what's going on here? Excuse me. Parole and probation can do things that virtually no other area does and are typically not as active in a region, but have been here in the past in our region. And we have the leverage because we have good partners. Chief Jones and Chief Scott have, I would say, good relationships with these folks. And what they can do for us is, I think you had a component that's going to be dealing with the youth in one of these days.
Town hall, day one.
A key preventative is the youth who have yet to create the violent, that have not yet committed violent crime, but we know have committed crime, and they're under the parole and probation umbrella. We can offer them opportunities. This is critical. This is if we could get parole and probation to bring in these youth, and we did this here at the city of Gainesville. I know because Chief Jones was sending me all around the city to track down these people with parole and probation years ago. You bring in the ones who have not yet committed a violent crime, and you sit them down with perhaps impact panel. These are just thoughts. Someone who's been a victim, or someone who's lived that life and has decided to change their life for the better. They went through those challenges, and now they're upright, which is what you said, burying people. And then you have the education partner that you had on your list, and they say, look, if you can just remain free of doing these crimes, this is the problem. I mean, they're talking very, very openly with some really good adult facilitators dealing with parole and probation, Chief Jones. Here's what we got for you, and it's the opportunity to say, here is the track, here's your education, here's your career and technical, but if you don't, here's what we got for you. And that's two very different roads, and that's a very interesting, I don't know that we can pull that off for the summit, but whether we pull it off there or we do it with our police and parole and probation partner, we need to lean on parole and probation, say, you tell us, who are the offenders that are not yet crossed the bridge, but are problems? We need to interrupt them now. We need to get them out of that mindset and tell them what they could do if they make the right. So that's a really important action. That's action.
Absolutely.
And it'll be meaningful. That's one. The other one is simply that we have 2 threat assessment teams at the college and the university. This is something a little different from most law enforcement. I know I chaired our team for 9 years. I'm not
Threat
sure.
assessment?
Threat assessment team or behavioral intervention team. These are multidisciplinary teams at the university and the college. And what they deal with is trying to get in front of violence, making sure we don't have an active threat. So they assess in a different way. I think we should probably invite those 2 teams and maybe they send a rep, because it's a different way of thinking. It's a low-level complaint that is not yet violence. But if we don't address it, it'll be what you've been talking about. Now we're burying somebody. So these are just a couple. I mean, I could speak all day about it. I'm really glad that you even set up the meeting.
I'm really glad too, and you know, it's interesting that you mentioned that the threat assessment team. I definitely am going to go onto the website and learn a little bit more about it. It sounds almost like a program that we were running, the Interrupters.
It's a little different in that it does interrupt and it gets to the root of what's causing the person, so it does look at their circumstance. It's similar to that. It's different in that it figures out what did they do in education? How it's evaluating the person in a 360 degree. It may be somewhat close. But I'll give you the acronyms. You look them up.
Yeah.
And,
is there a follow-up component to it?
always.
Mhm.
There's a case manager for any
Mhm.
complaint, no matter how
Mhm.
low level it is.
Mhm.
You don't ever want it to be up here.
Right, right.
Just for the record, the Santa Fe College, University of Florida, I think their team is called Threat Assessment and Management Team, TAMT, I think.
Mhm.
Santa Fe College is called BIT, Behavioral Intervention Team.
Mhm.
They do the same, they train together. And it is kind of a cutting edge best practice that we probably need to be training our public safety partners also. I don't think we've done a real good job with that just yet.
Okay. Well, Commissioner Book, yeah, oh, Gordon, yes.
I've been listening, and I've been focusing on some key vocabulary that you guys use in the vernacular. It's upsetting, but we're not going to talk about that. What I will talk about, which is leadership, or the lack of, in certain ways, shapes, and forms, especially with the summit. I see a gaping hole that's going to just funnel all the energy out of this, unless, because I saw Grace Marketplace on this list of agencies or governing organizations, John DeCarmine, and then I thought about law enforcement's interaction with Grace Marketplace with John DeCarmine over the years, and you see, I myself have done my own research, and I've talked with officers who've had 16 years on the force, 13 years, and there's dozens of them that know me well enough to not have to shy away from saying, you know, Gordon, if we didn't have to deal with this homelessness and calls about the homeless person here, and the call, I would say close to 20% of what we have to deal with is dealing with homelessness because the city has no grasp, as well as the providers have no grasp on exactly what they need to do, and not to deal with homeless people. I'm talking about deal with the infrastructure that allows this all to happen. And now you talk about being reactive. I see no proactive efforts except those that I chisel into the stone of my cranium that says something can be done, something should be done. And you know where I stand on this. I could back up everything that I say, and I would challenge anyone to try to contemplate against me when we're talking about Florida statutes when it comes to homelessness, and people who are homeless being clients. They're not guests. And when a client dies, and they die, I see that that exceeds gun violence by 1,000 to 1. Just here in this county, and not to be interrupted by anyone on these things. Nobody will challenge me outright. So if anyone wants to have more police presence, at least with what we're dealing with right now, there's a bunch of empty police cars, you should have leadership that allows homelessness to basically take care of itself under an alternate. But Grace Marketplace just doesn't have the initiative because they're getting their information from every other city that has no clue on what they're doing, and they all work for an interagency council on Capitol Hill that absolutely does not have a plan to end homelessness. Their only plan is to expand and expand and keep hiring people with degrees. And the room that is designated, we're going into that room because that's the room that people enter who are going to fight to end homelessness. That room's empty. They got dot matrix printers still in there that have never been touched. We're wasting our time because we're not facing the biggest problem that nobody here wants to talk about. You're not going to fix your city until you eliminate the fact that these people are going to be someplace, but they have no place to go. And there they sit, no, I have nobody that's going to weigh in on me with this because I'm going to back up what I'm talking about here with a declaration of intent. I want to address this summit because Gainesville could be the absolute place where homelessness literally the beginning of the end of homelessness could start. And Gainesville could teach through real plans of action, not plans to make plans, to discuss about getting together when we're gonna have time to make plans, and then possibly we'll make plans to discuss plans that maybe we'll dig out of somebody's grave. No, I'm dying because you guys can't make up your minds on whose tail to sniff to try to find an answer to homelessness.
Mr. Gordon,
Shoot
you're gonna
me
have
in
to
the
ask you to wrap
head
up a little
would
bit.
be better, as well as everybody who's out there. I just want to address the fact that I don't like when I am ignored by city leaders, city managers, mayors, deputy mayors, and not just this current days, but Lauren Poe, Lee Feldman.
Mr. Gordon?
These people all have a responsibility to take
I'm gonna have
care
to
of
reel you in.
these people. I just want to make sure that
I
this
understand.
little talk right here focuses on, like what Joe said, what you can do with the tools that you have. You've got a tool sitting at the end of this desk here, and nobody wants to activate it because they know what's going to happen. The business of homelessness, this monster that is in control of all these people, is going to come to a grinding halt. All I am, and what I'm saying is, all I am is a very annoying grain of sand. That's not going to go away, and I can't be destroyed. And I have the answers to the questions that everybody has, but nobody wants to talk to me. And that's where we're going to leave this. I am friendly with everybody. My email is open.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Gordon.
just,
Thank you.
everybody could understand this.
Yeah,
My importance.
yeah.
Because I'm the one who's dying because other people make decisions, because they are not going to be ever affected by their decisions. We talked about that.
No one here is challenging
Well,
anything
they're
I
better
said.
not, because they'll get dusted by me.
Well, I don't want that to happen, neither myself nor the mayor pro tem, I can tell you that.
And you know what, Mr. Gordon, to your points, you and I have had the opportunity to have a number of conversations, and I've always appreciated each one. See, what I'm witnessing right now is really, this is the public health approach in motion,
It is.
right here. And Gordon has always brought a wealth of knowledge and experience with a very important matter that he's absolutely right. You know, I'm sure that probably other places may be doing different things,
They're
but
not.
it's a huge, huge issue that we do need to talk about. I would love to talk to you a little bit later on today, even, Gordon. We've had some great conversations, but you're right. We can always do more.
No,
What I-
we're not going to always. We are going to do more.
We're going to do more. You're
That
right.
is
You're
a
right.
fact that everybody here, especially you folks who are running city commissions and county boards, if you cannot act on the fact that somebody's got a plan, or not even call them to the table, say, we're going to challenge you, let's see what you got. Bring all the coffee you need, because you're going to need a few gallons. I'll keep you there for 3 days.
We don't need a few
And no one
gallons
will
of
stop
coffee.
you.
Mr.
Not for
Bernstein.
locally and all the way up to Capitol Hill.
Thank you.
I
Gordon.
want to end homelessness. I don't want to be dancing around it with a silly Sally loosey-goosey attitude, like I see all over the country. You guys aren't alone, not by any means, but you're left out in the cold with your hands tied behind your back, and a sob story that reads, you read, because you're going to have to, the president's opinion about homelessness. He talks to you guys when he's addressing homelessness. He's not talking to the homeless person saying, we're going to come and we're going to rescue you off the street with a real plan. He said, we're going to take the next 2 years and we're going to fund homelessness and we're going to create this and do all of this. But they don't care that that person right outside their front door is dying from neglect, and he's a client. So I'm going to leave all this, because I could talk all night, and I don't wish to do so. People here need to go and do something more fun, like celebrate the end of the homelessness
Doesn't have to be fun to be
problem.
meaningful.
Thank
And I do hear that, so this is proactive action.
It
This is the mayor pro tem calling something saying, In fact, that's all I've heard from the mayor pro tem. I mean that in a good way.
Well, I wrote down
Let's
everything
do
she said
something,
that was
let's get it
important.
done. And it's probably pretty frustrated even with us saying, well, wait a second, and that's okay. So I actually see, this is government in action. We're not swift, don't get me wrong. We're not super speedy, but if we're actually invested, it does mean that we do care about doing something.
My plan of action is speedy. I may not be right here the most eloquent speaker, but my work speaks for itself.
It does. Thank you, Gordon. Can I do this? I just want to make sure, Colleen, you've been really mysteriously quiet.
Yeah, what's happening over here?
Well, I appreciate being at the table, and I do want to say one thing real quickly, or two things. I really appreciate you taking the public health approach, not just because I'm a nurse, but because for decades, at the national level, the gun lobby in Congress have deliberately suppressed the public health approach, stopped the collection of data, and that's been so destructive. But we can do that locally, because the gun lobby is focused on DC and state legislatures. We can fly under their radar and get that done. And I really like your idea of getting the young people who are at this point very low-level offenders, but you can get to them.
They're there.
But I want to urge you, work with them very much on the carrot side more than the stick, because you don't want their grudging
That's what it's all about.
cooperation. You want them really invested. So the carrot side is what's going to get them
Yes,
really
sir.
invested and energized on it. That's it.
Thank you, Colleen. Well, we are, yes, Joe, yes.
But I put aside before, so
Uh-huh.
this is citizen
Oh, that's
comment.
right, yes.
Okay, when I saw the notice of the meeting, it said general concern.
Mhm.
And so I'm here with the general concern, and I hope the two of you, since
Didn't say
Mr.
gun
Wood?
violence under there? I thought it said
this
underneath.
this is all I
I
read.
believe you, I thought it said right under there.
Okay.
I didn't see anything about that, so,
Okay.
I've got real concerns about waste of money, but about public records and about how your staff is fulfilling them and how I think that you are in gross violation in many, many ways, and I can give you specifics later. I don't want to take your time now, but first, I would ask you to, and I know, well, I guess it's a public meeting, you can respond, and you can ask me. You have a public records portal that was put into effect about 3 or 4 years ago, was supposed to be the best thing since sliced bread, was supposed to make it easier to get public records, and your public records system has gotten worse and worse and worse. There's one thing you can do immediately. The public records portal, where if I make a public record request, they send me a public record number and a key. And they change what I put on in my record. I've got a way of trying to track my own records, but they mess that up. They assign a number and they give a key. And you cannot should be able to go and just say public records and see all the public records should be there and open. Your software has the ability to do that. I have asked the previous clerk numerous times to flip the switch. That's just a software thing. If you look on the site, it even says, that you can access it. You can't, because somebody in the city or some buddies have in their infinite wisdom sought to do that. So I could be asking for a public record. I asked for some records from Mr. Ward. I've asked for a lot of records. They should be open to the public, because you don't know, and you get the runaround. You get, your thing has been received. I could make a direct request of you, but then, you're not fulfilling the records yourself when you have them, and the law says that, if you've got the record, you've got the custodian, you should send it. No, it gets sent to Just FOIA, it gets sent to Shanika, it gets entered, it comes back with an automatic response that lots of people may have the records. I know who has the records. I go to you for your records, and then they go back through this thing. And So you're wasting staff time, you're wasting citizen time, and it seems like you're hiding, the transparency that was heralded with this wonderful new software that costs us more money. And so I'm just asking you now if anybody wants more details about the ways, including your city attorney. I've made a public records request of him, and it's yet to be acknowledged. So I think you all need public records training by somebody outside the city. I think you need to read the law. You need to do it because some of you are violating it inadvertently, and some of you maybe on purpose, and the whole system is not set up to be transparent.
Thank you, Ms. Beatty. I want to say something to that. First of all, thank you again. So as you know, we have a new clerk. And ironically, just earlier today, she and I had a meeting, and one of the things I asked her about was public records. So one of the things I would encourage you to do first, and I'll tell you what my conversation entailed, is reach out to her. She is, I think, 1 week into this new office, maybe not even that long. But I believe you're going to see some changes with that. I'm going to ask her specifically
I'm going to
about
tell
the
you if
portal
that
issue.
switch is not flipped
Mhm.
by July 20th, you can expect to hear from me at that meeting.
Sure, absolutely.
No, wait a minute, we don't want to hear from you on July 20th. And I'll tell you why, I know it sounds humorous.
I don't want to be there July 20th.
Wait a minute.
That's the funniest thing that's happened today.
So the portal right now is having some issues right now.
That's not, it's a different portal. It's a different
Oh,
portal.
yes.
You're talking about the.
I'm talking about the archive email portal is down at the moment. I just had emails.
Okay,
All right,
and that-
never
Yeah,
mind.
I'm glad you brought it up.
Don't forget what I said, I
No,
take it
I
back.
want the switch flip, but to what Mr. Book is talking about, that portal has been down. Your emails, I've told you multiple times, are not there. Since Ed Brady was there and did the best to make all of the commission emails open, the commission has decided, previous commissions have decided to allow you to withdraw it. So it doesn't matter, if that site wasn't down, Mr. Book, today I could not see the Mayor Ward's emails, I could not see anybody. It was
Mine was up there.
yours and Cynthia Chestnut's were the only ones that were shown, and she hadn't looked at hers in a while when I last looked, when that was last open. It is absolutely wrong, abhorrent, that, that this is not, I never have a problem in the county. The county put up their emails in 2000, long before we did. They have a website that goes, you get them in real time. You don't have to wait a week because these commissions have decided, oh, well, first you can't see it till the night after we look at it, then you can't see it then, and now it's at a week or something, sometimes it's been 2 weeks, and you don't have them posted. So, and sending somebody to that portal is not fulfilling a public records request.
Can I ask you to do this, Ms. Beatty? Because I understand, and you have expressed that a number of times. May I suggest, reach out to the new clerk, see what she has to say, because she, from our conversation, literally, probably about 3 hours ago, literally said that she was going to make some changes with regards to that. I think
Well-
if we start there,
You have to look at what the commission has voted on, because she is limited
for sure.
by what,
So
and-
reach out to her and tell her what your concerns are. And then after that, if you see the switch has not been flipped, like you said, please come back, because then it needs to be a larger conversation.
Well, it's, you guys are gonna wind up in court. I'm literally, with the violations that just I've seen, it's just ridiculous. And I'm not threatening you, but I'm just saying what you let yourself open to, and all the talk about we're transparent. I'd like to see how many times transparent open government is on your website, comes out of your mouths, and it's not. And don't fool yourselves.
I didn't know that you spoke.
I will be happy to talk to Ms. Bryant, and I'd be happy to talk to any of you about the specifics, and I've got a lot of specifics and a lot of problems with your public records, and especially that one made of your city attorney and another city attorney. It shows them that it didn't happen.
I didn't know that the mayor pro tem had talked to Ms. Bryant. I
Just
also
earlier
spoke
today.
to her, I didn't have exactly the same conversation, because we can't talk about it.
No. and
But
she
I actually
can't tell
spoke to
me.
her last week, and it was about the port, just general, the portal and kind of my views about transparency and stuff. Right now, our email archive portal is
Right.
down completely.
There's no excuse for that.
And I
So
actually sent an email and found out yesterday it's going to be in probably another 2 to 3 weeks.
That's unacceptable.
I got a response yesterday. I said, I need a response today, and I got the response yesterday, which said
Yeah.
the email piece.
Right.
They're trying to install some
So
type
then,
of security.
when I
so
make
just
a
that.
public records request of you for your emails, I expect you all to send them to me, not send them around the loop or tell me to go get it off the website that's not even working for a
That's what we have to
month.
do.
Well,
We have to do that.
I'd like your emails for the last 2 months, both of you.
Okay, what's the process for her to get that? I mean, you just
You
telling us that you
can
have to.
go, you can forward your email to me.
That's
You've
fine.
got my
You'll get
email address.
You'll
He's
get
got my
them.
email.
Yeah, I just want to do it in time and effect, but that's thousands.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
That's thousands.
Well, then you direct somebody to do it. Somebody must be able to sit there and.
But you can get them, Miss Beatty. I don't think you're talking to two people who have a problem with that.
No,
I
I
don't
know
care
you
who
don't
reads
have
my
a
stuff.
problem with it. I think you have been ignorant of the situation and, you know, you don't know it. That's why I came here to bring it to your attention, you know, and, you know, if you can't sit there and send them to me, then you got staff, you know, it's, but there's no reason it can't be done. I mean, you
Jatoya
can probably-
Jatoya
you
is
probably
both
can-
of our EA. Jatoya, I'm sure, will be happy
They
to
can
make sure you get
download
those.
them and send them in a zip
Okay.
file.
Sounds
Can
awfully
we-
voluminous.
I-
I mean,
It is,
you
but
make
she
the
can have it.
request, that's the way it is, but.
Yeah,
it's-
that's
it's-
okay,
it's
that's
a-
okay.
another-
Commissioner, I greatly appreciate
thank
the
you.
information that you shared. I appreciate everybody who came and sat around the table with us today and out in the audience.
May I make
Thank you
one-
very much.
One positive comment here.
Yes, please.
I just want to thank you for running this meeting the way you did. Originally when, well, not originally, but just about every time, way back when, sit around, we'd be invited to the table and we'd be able to participate as you have encouraged and allowed us today. And that hasn't happened in a long time, in my experience. And so I just
It's been
want
a
to
long
thank.
time, forever.
Well,
Well, you don't have to keep chewing on us about it now, you know, I mean.
No, I'm just saying
We're
it
glad
like
you
it
feel,
is.
we're glad you feel
But I
welcome.
do want to thank you for that, and I hope you've set the example for.
what I got.
Mayor Pro
Well,
Tem.
and Commissioner Book.
No,
Yeah.
you were running it, but yes, he invited us to.
You're in
For sure.
charge.
I haven't seen that in a long time, and I do appreciate it.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Ended on a
Glad you're here.
positive note.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone else. This meeting is adjourned.